Before we begin, a brief content warning. This episode contains references to violence against children and sexual abuse. Some of the details may be distressing for certain listeners. Please take care of yourself. In the previous episode, we heard that Andersen came forward with a new and dramatic account, an unreserved confession in which he admitted to being involved in the crimes. At the same time, Kristiansen denied any wrongdoing, and his family rallied around him, believing in his innocence. Over a series of interviews, Andersen changed his story multiple times, with details often contradicting each other. Meanwhile, the police presented DNA evidence purportedly linking Kristiansen to the crime, and media pressure intensified. The case was now moving towards court, and someone would be convicted, but the question remained, who and for what? The trial begins just under a year after the girls were murdered. Andersen has confessed and implicated Kristiansen in his statements, portraying him as the calculating mastermind behind the events. Kristiansen, on the other hand, denies all charges. He maintains that he had nothing to do with what happened to the girls. Alongside the Baneheia case, the court also considers the other incidents revealed in earlier interviews. Kristiansen's admission to abusing another young girl several years prior, the peeping case, and yet another allegation involving sexual abuse of a boy from his neighborhood. The courtroom is open to family members and the press. Kristiansen's father does not attend, not because he doubts his son's innocence or wants to distance himself, but because the entire situation has become too overwhelming. The room falls silent as the two boys are brought in. Many spectators are momentarily confused by their appearance. In the media, Kristiansen had been portrayed as the more dangerous of the two, while Andersen was often described as sort of a victim himself, easily manipulated, weak and impressionable. Yet in person, the impression is the opposite. Andersen is also significantly larger than Kristiansen. Several aspects of their demeanor throughout the trial surprise observers, particularly the differences in how they react to the proceedings. When the prior abuse of a young girl is discussed, Kristiansen appears visibly affected. He confesses, breaks down in tears, and apologizes to the girl's mother, who is present in the courtroom. When nude photographs, allegedly taken by Kristiansen years earlier in the same woodlands as the girls were killed, are presented, he shows clear embarrassment, which escalates into anger. He threatens not to continue testifying if discussion of these photos continues in the presence of the press. However, when the focus shifts to the two girls and autopsy photos of the girls are displayed, Kristiansen seems comparatively unshaken. He occasionally shoots Andersen irritated glances, but maintains a neutral, emotional demeanor. Andersen, by contrast, appears deeply affected, keeping his gaze fixed on the table in front of him when the autopsy photos are shown. He can't even look at them. The fact that Andersen claims he could not overpower Kristiansen, even when holding the knife, despite being physically larger, combined with Kristiansen's strong emotional reactions when discussing the abuse of the young girl next door, but not having those reactions while discussing the two other girls, that Andersen is the one displaying noticeable distress while they talk about those crimes, raises questions. Andersen presents his account. He states that Kristiansen had made threats to kill him if he didn't sexually abuse and kill one of the girls. Most of what he says echoes his earlier confessions, with some additional details. He now claims that Kristiansen had asked him if he was homosexual because he had struggled to follow through with the sexual abuse. Beyond that, his story remains consistent with prior accounts. Kristiansen had threatened him with a knife. He did not want to participate, but ultimately he abused the younger girl and killed her. When the prosecutor asks why he had not tried to overpower Kristiansen when given the knife, Andersen explains that it would have been impossible, because Kristiansen was physically stronger, and adds that his mind was in complete chaos. He describes Kristiansen as smiling and laughing during the assaults, saying that sparks were flying from his eyes. What is not revealed to the court is that this was just the latest of many conflicting statements from Andersen. The authorities present him as credible and honest. The investigator who conducted the interviews with him testifies that Andersen had laid all his cards on the table within half an hour, and says that he trusts Andersen's version of events. Then, it's Kristiansen's turn to give his testimony. He denies all charges, insisting he had nothing to do with the events. He claims that he had been at home in his shed, working on his bicycle during the time in question. The prosecution then present all the information they have to support their portrayal. Kristiansen as a sexually fixated, violent young man who had coerced his friend into participating in assaults and murder. They emphasize his temperament and the knife-throwing incidents, including one where he threw a knife at his father. The items found in the shed are also introduced. Combined with the pre-trial image of Kristiansen constructed by the media and law enforcement, in light of the other charges and Andersen's confessions, the prosecution appears to successfully portray Kristiansen as someone who fits Andersen's narrative perfectly. Next comes the forensic evidence. The Norwegian National Institute of Forensic Medicine revealed that a pubic hair belonging to Andersen, along with 9 sperm cells linking both boys to the crime scene, has been recovered. It is established that the sperm cells came from 2 men. Anderson is confirmed as one of them, and DNA from the second offender matches Kristiansen's profile. At this point, the case against Kristiansen seems settled. The implication is clear. If his DNA was present at the crime scene, he must have been there, must have assaulted at least one of the girls, and his previous account could not be true. While the prosecution doesn't explicitly state that the sperm cells were Kristiansen's, they strongly suggest it. The evidence is presented to indicate 2 perpetrators, as the DNA could not belong to Anderson alone, implying Kristiansen's involvement. The forensic experts assert that the DNA findings proves beyond doubt that 2 individuals committed the crimes. Telecommunications records from Kristiansen's mobile phone are also presented. These show that he had received and sent a total of 4 messages during the relevant time frame. The messages had routed through cell tower EGA, which did not cover the area of the crime scene, but did cover the area around Kristiansen's house, where he claimed to have been. The coverage area of the base station ended near the Black Lake, at least a 6-minute walk from the crime scene. The messages were as follows: received at 18:55, sent at 18:57, received again at 19:24, and sent again at 19:37. The messages Kristiansen sent were flirtatious texts to a girl he liked. The source of the received messages could not be definitively identified, though it is possible they came from the same girl. The police had collected this data during the investigation, but deemed it insignificant and did not preserve it. Consequently, when the defense later sought to verify the information, much of the data was no longer available because too much time had passed. Anderson initially claims that Kristiansen had the phone with him. Later, he suggests that he might have left it in a bag on his bike, which he had left near the gate at the car park by the Black Lake, then suggesting that Kristiansen may have left the crime scene briefly to receive and send the last messages. None of these explanations are consistent. Had Kristiansen brought his phone with him, or left it with his bike? Had he left the scene of the crime for several minutes? The telecommunication evidence becomes a contentious point, both in court and in the media. Could his phone have connected to a different cell tower than it was supposed to from the crime scene? Or do they prove that Kristiansen couldn't have been there? Court-appointed psychiatrists have assessed both boys' mental capacity for empathy. They conclude that Kristiansen lacks empathy. Regarding Anderson, they are in disagreement. Their evaluations focuses on the defendant's ability to understand the consequences of their actions and exercise self-control. If they base their evaluations on remorse and empathy, and Kristiansen denies any involvement, this evaluation might not be accurate, considering the case that he is telling the truth. Kristiansen's lawyer requests an acquittal, urging the judges to base their verdict solely on the evidence and not on media portrayals. He highlights the telecommunication evidence as his key argument. Anderson's defense counsel argues that Anderson's confession should be trusted and recommends a 10-year sentence without preventative detention. Kristiansen's lawyer's final remarks to the court emphasizes that any verdict must withstand future scrutiny. Ultimately, the telecommunications evidence is outweighed by the DNA evidence and Anderson's testimony. Anderson is convicted for complicity in both sexual assaults and the intentional murder of the younger girl. Despite the severity of his actions, he receives a reduced sentence for his confession and consistent honesty, receiving 17 years. Kristiansen is found guilty of the sexual assaults on the other girl, which he confessed to, the sexual assault of the boy from his neighborhood, which he denies, the peeping case, and for the sexual assaults and premeditated murder of both girls in the Baneheia case. He is sentenced to 21 years preventative detention. Both appeal, Kristiansen maintaining his innocence and Anderson contesting the severity of his sentence. Media coverage intensifies, often portraying the boys negatively before the appeal. Kristiansen is described as a reincarnation of evil and labeled dangerous. He finds it hard to read all that the media says about him. He is particularly hurt by being called a murderer. His family deliberately avoids media coverage. It hurts too much. Even though Kristiansen still maintains his innocence, and the case has some lingering gaps, the public largely accepted that someone had been convicted and that the matter is resolved. Since the police announcement of DNA evidence conclusively linking Kristiansen to the crimes, he has generally been regarded as guilty. Both boys' appeals take the case from the Crown Court to the Court of Appeal. A jury of 10 ordinary citizens is assembled to re-evaluate the cases, including the main case and Kristiansen's other convictions. The proceedings are similar to the Crown Court. Witness testimonies, technical evidence, and the defendant's statements are presented once again. The girls' family members have to go through the emotional strain of revisiting all images and details once again. Anderson restates that he had acted on the threat to his life and expresses remorse. The defense and prosecution again attempt to portray Kristiansen negatively, aligning him with Anderson's narrative. Kristiansen requires 2 additional breaks during cross-examination due to how aggressive they are questioning him. DNA evidence is reintroduced exactly as last time. Telecommunication evidence is presented once again by Kristiansen's defense via an expert from the same mobile operator that he used. This time the prosecution counters these statements by bringing their own expert from another operator service. He states that it's impossible for him to say how the reception was at the scene the night in question. This is interpreted as that it is impossible to state that Kristiansen couldn't have had reception via this specific cell tower at the time. He effectively shatters the credibility of the telecommunication evidence. The jury deliberates for 3 hours and 20 minutes. Upon returning, they announce their decision. At least 7 of them found Kristiansen guilty in the Baneheia case. He is once again convicted of molesting the other girl and in the peeping case, but this time he is acquitted of molesting the boy from his neighborhood. He again receives 21 years preventative detention. Anderson receives a slightly harsher sentence than in Crown Court, 19 years, 2 more than his initial 17-year term, despite appealing on the grounds that the original sentence was too severe. Kristiansen continues to deny all guilt regarding the main case, maintaining that he has been wrongly convicted. The question remains, will anyone believe him?